The short answer, yes. Colombia and Medellin probably are more dangerous than London and the UK, but there are some nuances to that which I'm going to explain to you now using my own personal experience. Now, the first point is I think it is easier to find danger here in Colombia. If you go out looking for trouble, you're doing things you shouldn't be, you are putting yourself in compromising positions, you are getting blackout drunk, you are flashing your cash around, you are hanging out in neighborhoods where you kind of really shouldn't be, or you're not taking the advice of locals and staying in the safe areas. Yes, it is significantly more dangerous here than back in the UK, and I would have thought the vast majority of foreigners and tourists who kind of run into trouble have gone out looking for it and they have put themselves in those compromising positions. So that's the first point. It is easier to find danger and trouble here in Medellin. For example, there are some neighborhoods and cities within the metropolitan area of Medellin which are significantly more safe compared to others. Down in the south, in Sabaneta and Envigado, parts of El Poblado, you are usually pretty safe, whereas in the north, in places like Bello or the center of Medellin where the big museums are, that tends to be significantly more dangerous. So there is a little bit of a zonal difference there. Also with cities as well, cities like Cali and Bogota at the moment are significantly more dangerous than Medellin. Medellin at the moment is actually pretty safe compared to those cities. And it's a little bit like in the UK, how you have different zones within cities are either going to be more dangerous or more safe compared to others. My neighborhood in London, for example, Notting Hill, overall was pretty safe, but there are some neighborhoods in London like Croydon or Tottenham which are pretty dangerous, and so you would be doing best to stay clear of those areas. I would say that the more expensive areas of London tend to be safer, but with the rise of phone theft and watch theft like Rolexes, for example, those exclusive areas where the wealthy people live, where all those Rolexes are, like Mayfair and Knightsbridge, tend to be the hot spots for watch theft, for muggings, things like that. So that kind of skews the data slightly, but overall the point I'm trying to make, it is highly location and city dependent here in Colombia as to whether you are going to be safe or not. It also depends on the level of crime. So here in Colombia, there will probably be more instances of major crime, murders, kidnappings, that kind of thing compared to London in the UK. But in terms of petty theft, I'm not sure of the statistics, but in London, I used to see it all the time. People shoplifting in Sainsbury's, even in Notting Hill, even in affluent areas. Whereas so far in Medellin, Colombia, I haven't seen too much of that. That being said, I do not hang out in like the northern parts of the city, the unsafe parts of the city, because there would be no reason for me to go there. So my own personal experience isn't exactly 100% watertight on that, but that is just from what I've seen. There tends to be a little bit more petty theft in the UK compared to here in Colombia. But some of you watching this may disagree with me, so let me know your thoughts. I'd like to hear that. Now, the second point, living here in Colombia, you definitely have to be more careful of where you are, your surroundings, compared to in London or in the UK, and especially if you are a white male or female, you stand out like a sore thumb here. You don't blend in at all, so you have to be extra careful if you do not look like a local here in Medellin. And I obviously do not look like a local at all, so I have to be really careful when I'm walking around or just exercising general common sense. A little bit like how you would have to be careful if you're in London, if you are wearing an expensive watch, if you're wearing a Rolex valued at over, £10,000, you would be slightly more careful than usual in terms of watching people go past on motorbikes, not flashing your watch, that kind of thing. It's exactly the same here. I don't carry big wads of cash around with me. I'm extremely careful with what I wear, the presents I kind of give off, because I know I'm an easy target for people who just want to maybe make some money, steal some things or whatever. And they actually have a famous saying here in Colombia. They say no da papaya, which basically means do not give papaya. Papaya is this like fruit you get in Latin America. And basically translated that is don't give people the opportunity or reason to do anything bad to you. So, don't flaunt your wealth, don't wear fancy watches, don't wear gold chains, don't be completely wasted in public with no idea of where you are or what you're doing. Don't make yourself a target. If you're wearing a rucksack, for example, wear it on the front of you, not on the back of you. Make sure you don't have your phone falling out of your pocket or held in your hand, like I'm doing with my camera right now. I've got it held in my hand, but I'm in a park. I'm fairly safe in a safe part of the city. I would not walk around with this camera out in a rougher part of the city because it would make me a massive target. Although honestly, it would probably make good YouTube content to see the rougher parts of the city, so I may do that in a later video. And with that, I do think the vast majority of cases of tourists or foreigners having things happen to them are avoidable in the first place with a bit of common sense, with staying in the right areas without kind of pushing your luck too much. But there is a culture here in Colombia of victim blaming, whereby if something does happen to, let's say, a foreigner or a gringo, like they get their phone stolen, they get mugged, something like this, people will tend to say, oh, well, he's probably asking for it. He was probably walking out with his phone. phone, he was probably doing this and doing that. And in some cases that is true, yes, but you can also just get unlucky where you're taking all the right precautions, you haven't got your phone out in public, you're not flaunting your wealth, you're not wearing expensive jewelry, and someone or some people pull up on a motorbike, mug you, and then drive off. And because of the motorbike culture there is here in Colombia in general, it is extremely easy for criminals to just do a quick drive-by, mug someone, drive off, and they're kind of nowhere to be seen. It's a lot easier for them to maneuver around like that, let's say compared to London and the UK, where there's more surveillance, there's less of a motorbike culture there, there's probably more of a police presence. So that's something also to bear in mind. It's probably easier for criminals to quote unquote get away with their crimes here in Colombia. But I have been told that it's improving with better surveillance in the city, development, infrastructure, all that kind of stuff. So I can safely say I have lived here continuously for 7 months, and touch wood, nothing bad has happened to me. I haven't been mugged, I haven't had any kind of dodgy run-ins with locals, anything like that. But I am also extremely careful. I'm not getting blackout drunk at night time. I'm not going out looking for drugs. I'm not hanging out in dodgy parts of the city. I'm not wearing gold chains, which some people do when you're walking around Provenza. You do see it sometimes. If you go to the party district here in Medellin, you will see tourists, usually from the United States, I'm sorry to say, who are walking around with their Rolex watches, with their big $20,000 Miami Cuban link gold chains, and you kind of see them walking along and you're thinking, wow, you guys are really asking for trouble. And so yeah, if you're walking around in London with a gold chain and a nice watch, you would be unlucky if something happened to you. So in that instance, Medellin and Colombia are more dangerous than the UK equivalent. And the third point I'll say is the level of danger that you'll experience here in Colombia or Medellin, where I am now, is dependent on who you are. If you are a Latino from another country, you blend in pretty well, you speak perfect Spanish, you're already accustomed to walking around or driving in a Latin American city, you will probably be a lot safer compared to a tall, pale, blonde gringo like I am, who speaks broken Spanish. I've only lived in South America for 7 months and I'm not that experienced at living here. So it also depends on who you are. So if you do not blend in, like I don't, you have to be extra careful. And I would say this is pretty different to life in London, because London is a more multicultural city than Medellin. And so foreigners just blend in really well in London, because just they're everywhere. It's not unusual to see a large amount of foreigners walking around or driving around London, because there are so many of them there. People from all parts of the world call London their home. Here in Colombia and Medellin, it's only really started to be on people's radar for a destination for expats basically. And so as a foreigner, as a white guy or girl, you do stick out more here in Colombia, so you have to be extra careful for that. That's another reason why life here will be slightly more dangerous compared to living in London, the UK, or maybe another European city. So there you have it, guys. That is my take and my personal experience on why I think Colombia and Medellin are slightly more dangerous than London, the UK. But you never know, in 5 years time, 10 years time, the roles could be reversed as Colombia keeps on improving, keeps on developing, and sadly the UK keeps on getting worse and worse, which is fairly kind of undeniable nowadays with all the changes that have been going on. So I hope you guys have liked this video. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you in the next one.